Welcome to the Relocated South African, the show for navigating immigration from South Africa. I'm your host, Jan Hugo from Lagos, Portugal. Today we are joined by Lilly Quintal from Amanzimtoti in South Africa. Welcome, Lilly.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to share my experience with you.
Great. So you guys just moved back to Amanzimtoti after a stint in Portugal. How long have you been back in South Africa?
We arrived here on the 16th of December, and I was in Algarve, Lagos, Praia de Luz for about 21 months.
Okay. And let's start at the beginning. Are you born and bred South African?
No, I was actually born in Portugal. I was 7 years old when my parents immigrated to South Africa. So I've lived here 43 years of my life. I speak the language, I'm fluent in Portuguese, read, write. Yeah, so the language wasn't an issue for me at all.
Okay, awesome. And your husband obviously is also Portuguese, like
Yes.
you, born in Portugal?
No, he was actually born here. His parents are from the island Madeira.
Okay. There's a lot of Madeira people in South Africa, and they went to Mozambique, South Africa, and Angola, I guess.
Yes, they did, yeah.
Okay. Well, before we carry on, I have to tell the story about how this interview came about. So my sister-in-law in Amanzimtoti told me about a lady and a family who had just returned to South Africa and that she would arrange an interview for me. So long story short, when I saw Lily's name, I realized, but I've seen that name before. And it turns out that Lilly and her family lived in the village next door to us. And I'd met both her husband and her son, but I never met her. And here we are through a link in Amanzimtoti having this discussion. So it really is a small world. So they were in Luz and we're in Lagos. So interesting. So when did you decide to leave South Africa, Lilly?
So we left in May 2023. And the reason for us, the immigration to Portugal, we had actually prayed about it. You know, we had said that eventually we would want to retire in Portugal. And an opportunity came up for Carlos, work-wise, financially, as we had been on this roller coaster ride for about 10 years. And financially for us, things weren't working out here in South Africa. And when Carlos got given this opportunity to go and work for a Dutch company to build eco homes, we thought, well, our prayers have been answered. And we took the opportunity, we sold up everything, and we literally went with our suitcases and our clothes, a couple of boxes with sentimental stuff. And we left at the end of May 2023. We were there, I think, I was there 4 months. It took me about 4 months to actually find a job. As with Carlos, the company that he went over, it was empty promises, basically. So this Dutch company, we're going to build, I think it was 40 or 50 homes, and nothing actually materialized. They literally took the investors' money, and none of these homes were built.
Wow.
And still today, none of these homes have been built. So towards the end of 2023, in December, there was already red flags for this company. They had promised us they would pay half of our rent, and it came to 5th month going, and they stopped paying half of our rent. Just financially, it actually put us 20 steps backwards instead of actually going forward. And Carlos actually landed up leaving in February 2024. And that's when he landed up working with Reese for a couple of months, we were super grateful for. And then from there, that came to an end, and he landed up working for actually a British company.
Okay. One step back to the Dutch company. Was there absolutely no recourse?
No, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, we went through to the ACT. It was actually, there was 2 families that were it was ourselves and another couple, also ex-South Africans, but they were in Ireland at the time. So between my husband Carlos and this other George, they basically went through to the ACT with regards to this company. And they did put a claim through, but nothing materialized. And I believe that this is apparently quite common in Algarve, where they take people for a ride. They literally take their money and uproot families, and that's what happened with us. And that was one of the contributing factors as to why I myself hit rock bottom, depression. My mental health went. It was hard for me. It was really, really hard. Like I said, as we had gone over financially for a better future, and at the end of it, it just didn't turn out that way. And I mean, I'd left my daughter behind and my sister, who were very close. And there was a lot of guilt, the fact that I'd left them behind going to Portugal for a better future. And then unfortunately, things just didn't work out.
Wow, Lilly, that is just unbelievable. And the fact that one doesn't have recourse and you give up everything and that happens, it's just staggering to hear. And I guess, from the perspective of helping others, I think it's very important to say, if you think about that, was there anything that you could have done differently in terms of due diligence about this company and knowing what they were about?
Yeah. Carlos and I have actually chatted about that, and if we could go back, we would have definitely done our homework more on the company as we went and blindsided, and it literally cost us R500,000, this move to Portugal.
Wow, that is unbelievable. And the opportunity was in the Algarve. It was here. That's why you came to Lagos Luz.
Yeah.
Okay.
The opportunity was there, yeah. And we actually always say that even though all my family's up north, my parents are there, and we said that if we had an opportunity to settle in Portugal, Algarve would have been our first option. And I mean, we lived in the most beautiful parts. We lived in Praia de Luz. It was beautiful. The safety was there. But all these contributing factors, Jan, contributed to obviously me being so unhappy there. I mean, I had days where I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd lost my identity. I just felt like, I didn't feel like a purpose to even live because of what we went through. It put a huge strain on our marriage. And I can honestly say it was through my faith that actually got me through it. Wow. Because if it wasn't through my faith, it was really, really hard. It was tough.
Well, I mean, it's staggering, and we sit here and we live a few k's away and we didn't know about this. But I listened to an interesting podcast. There's a very well-known group of South Africans called Oorsee. I don't know if you've come across that, oorsee.com.
No.
It was started by a guy in Australia, in Melbourne, South African guy, Stephen Pfeiffer. And he did an interview recently with a lady in America, I think in Virginia, South African lady who's a psychologist, and she had started a group for people who are expats and specifically for ladies who are battling through some serious mental health issues that go with immigration. And I think it was fascinating listening to her about how many people are battling and are looking for just help, just people that you can talk to. Because that's one of the things that I've found in a number of the interviews that I've done, is that one of the things that people miss most is support.
Yes.
Young families find that they're without their parents, they have young kids, something happens. It's not just a call to Oma and she's there, because you're on your own. And that was my other question. In terms of community, there's quite a big South African but also a big expat community in Luz. Did you find help there? Or?
I did make some good friendships, which I'll treasure forever. And I do still keep in contact with them. For example, Vim and Zenrika, they were an absolute blessing to my family. They were very good to us. They were very good to Calvin, my son. And we actually met a friend of, I call her a friend now, but at the time we actually met her at the Finances. I think the first week we were there. Her name is Paula. And because she heard us talking in English, and she came up to us, she says, "You guys sound South African. Are you from South Africa?" And we said, yes. And that's how that friendship came about. Was when we went through to the finances on the first week that we were there. And she was like my earth angel there. And even till today, we message each other every day, morning and at night. That's the friendship. And I must say, she was like my earth angel there. She was incredible. She really, really was.
That's fantastic to know. Just for people who are not familiar, Wim is the owner of a very well-known South African restaurant in Praia de Luz, also obviously with the name Wim, South African guy, but good people. So, it's just staggering because I think even though people form these communities, there's still so much loneliness out there because I don't know if you found that, but what I'm seeing is there's a lot of people that congregate here in groups of English and Swedish and South African and so on. And a lot of people who come here have their own stories, but nobody's familiar with their stories. So it becomes quite difficult to really relate because you don't know what's behind their background and so on. So I'm finding it a fascinating thing, but I really am hearing that there's a big need to find support just in general. Expat support.
Definitely. That is something, like I said, because of my family being all up north, like 6 hours away from me, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And obviously when Calvin landed up working for Wim and Zenrika, we found a lot of comfort in them as well. And then this friend of mine, Paula, that just by coincidence that we landed up on the same day at the finances. And since then we've become extremely very close friends. And yeah, I mean, she's there, I'm here, and we still message each other every day. She's, like I said, she was like my earth angel.
That's fantastic. So when you say your family's up north in Portugal or in South Africa?
No, up north in Portugal.
Okay.
They live near Serra da Estrela. It's near Coimbra. Coimbra is a very popular town.
University town.
Yes, so they're about 30 minutes away from Coimbra. My parents and then the rest of my dad's family.
Okay. And in terms of when you left, a lot of people complain about the red tape when you have to do D7 visas and different visas and deal with AMA and all the difficulty that you have in dealing with red tape. Obviously, that wasn't an issue for you because you both have Portuguese passports.
That's correct, yeah. We do. We've got citizenship, and so do both my children.
Okay, so it's always an option to come back if you want one day.
Yes, yeah. You know what, Jan? For me, right now, I just felt that my heart wasn't there. My heart was here. Also, because I had my daughter here and my sister. So that for me, this immigration was very, very difficult, leaving them behind because we've always been a very close family. So, in 10 years' time, I could feel different where if we want to go over, we can go over. We've got the citizenship, but right now, my heart just wasn't there.
Yeah, and I think one's got to listen to your heart. Life is so damn short. So you've got to listen to your heart. And it's an ongoing debate. When I look at our situation, we're different because our children live overseas. So I have kids in Dublin and in the US, and my wife's daughter's in Isle of Man. So I've got one son still in South Africa. But we ended up moving to get closer to them.
Yes.
And I think we had a level of gatvol in South Africa, as I call it. But we had the opportunity to leave, and we are very happy here. We've made very good friends, and the lifestyle suits us. But I've always been of the opinion that if you go, you've got to go with the idea of not going back.
Yes.
I understand if you're saying you went, but you didn't have your heart in it. And I mean, that's a big thing. Yeah. And I think that's an important message to people who are considering immigration. You've got to really go through all the pros and cons.
Absolutely.
And just in general, the 21 months that you were living here, did you enjoy living in Portugal?
There was a small percentage of me that I did, but I would say a lot of the times I always kept thinking of back home, always. And I think it's also because I had my daughter here and my sister. So for me, I think if they had gone with us, maybe things would have worked out differently, even though we had all the contributing factors as to why also things didn't work out. And all I wanted to do is just come back home to what I was familiar with, come back home to, the support that I had here. after living here for 43 years, this is all that I've known. Even though I speak the language, I read and I write, I still struggle to almost fit in, if it makes sense.
That's very, very interesting. I'd like to explore that a little bit because, my wife is doing Portuguese lessons twice a week. I've given up on it because I speak French and that's difficult enough. And a lot of people around us do lessons and they get private tutors and they really try hard.
Yeah.
But the Portuguese people in the Algarve, they don't speak Portuguese to us, they immediately revert back to English. And yet you're saying you battled to fit in?
I did, and I'm a purebred. I was born there. I mean, my parents were very strict with upbringing. We only spoke Portuguese at home because my parents didn't want us to lose the language. And I'm very grateful for that because, I wish I had kind of followed that through with my children. And that was one of my biggest regrets, that I didn't do that with Calvin and Michaela. Although Calvin, being there for the 21 months, he picked up a lot of the Portuguese language, even though it was 80% English in his working environment, but his Portuguese actually started getting better every day.
Okay. Yeah, we met him, obviously. Yes. He's a lovely boy. And your daughter, how old is she?
She is 24. She got married in January, and we're actually going to be grandparents.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Okay. And are they in Tokyo or in Durban or?
Yes, they are. Well, they up in Kloof. She's just finished her, she's qualified as a chartered accountant. She's busy finishing off her articles. She just passed her last board exam.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's fantastic. And does she has no plans to leave?
At the time when we were in Portugal, she did speak about obviously wanting to come over while, because we were there. But I think now that we're back, there's no plans. I think they're quite happy to stay here.
Okay. And there's a lot of obviously South African CAs that go to Amsterdam and Dublin and London and all over the world. They're in high demand. So it's something that she can do. And with a passport, it's even easier. So they've got options, I think, which is great. Just on the stay here and, from the perspective, again, of advising, telling other people, I mean, it's such an important thing to be mentally okay, because you said 21 months were actually quite bad for you.
Yeah, they were.
Because your mind was not in it.
No, it just wasn't there. And if I can say to you, Jan, there was days, there was weeks that I actually don't remember. I don't remember. There was such a blur. I hit rock bottom depression. And I'm not embarrassed to say it. I mean, there were times that Carlos didn't know what to do with me. My son saw me at my complete worst. Carlos would phone my sister in South Africa and say, I actually don't know what else to do with your sister. And I'm not embarrassed to say that I did. I hit rock bottom depression.
Oh, I have great sympathy because I think it is very, very difficult. And I appreciate that you're so open about it, because I think a lot of people think it's just moonshine and roses and you hop on a plane, you get there and it's like going on a vacation, and it's not a vacation. It's life is hard, life is difficult. And I can relate in a sense because when we were living in France, maybe Carlos told you, my wife had a terrible bike accident, broke her back.
Yeah, he did mention it. Yeah, I'm sorry to you. Is she okay from it?
No, she's fit as a fiddle. She broke her pelvis again in 23 here in Portugal. So she had 2 big bike accidents, and she's recovered and she's playing golf and she's doing all kinds of things. But I can relate to the difficulty of not having support, of being housebound, and it's just tough. I can totally relate, and we were fortunate that we managed to get through it, and people told us about Portugal and we came and looked and we loved what we saw. It's very, very tough. And you talked about making friends and having somebody like that. I mean, I just think there must be an opportunity for people to help others, I think that's part of what I want to do with this podcast, is to say that there is help. What would you say to people that are in that position now? When you were finding difficulty and yes, you were able to go back, but for people who can't go back, what would you say to them?
My advice to them is to try and find a support group, a support system, even if it's just a close friend that they can, pick up the phone and chat and, just vent. A lot of it, I just also, for me, I kept a lot in, where not that I was embarrassed to actually say that I was, I wasn't in a good headspace, but if I can give any advice is if they can find a good support system, a good friend, it definitely does help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you said about when you made this decision to leave, when you left, how many months ago to Portugal, and obviously there was this opportunity and so on, and you got on that plane, did you always have this thought that it might not last or you might come back? Or
No, never, because we went over financially for a better future for us, and because it didn't go according to plan, and if that company hadn't obviously done what they've done, maybe I wouldn't be back here. That financial pressure and the strain that we went through, it contributed to us returning back to SA.
Yeah, it's not a cheap place. If in rands, even in rands, Portugal is cheap in European standards, but it's not cheap in rands, that's for sure. So, yeah, that's obviously a massive issue. But with all the construction going on, was there not an opportunity around here for Carlos?
There was. Well, that's why when Carlos then left Co-Construct at the end of February, and then it was actually through Vim, once again. That's why I say he was such a blessing to our family. He was the one that introduced Carlos to Reese, and Reese kept us afloat for a couple of months. And when that work obviously came to an end, and then Carlos came across another job opportunity with HCS, which is a British company. And then he worked for them for a couple of months. I came back home to South Africa, and he decided, Carlos said, no, he'll still go back to Portugal to obviously try and recuperate some money. Like he said, he wanted to be reunited with his family. And he said financially, he would only come back to SA if there was a job opportunity, which the friend of ours who owns his own company then put that position up for Carlos to say that he's got a position in his company. And 2 weeks ago, Carlos actually said to him he'll take up the job offer. And so he's back here in SA with us.
Okay, fantastic. And with the work opportunity, because obviously going back without work would have been quite difficult.
Yeah, no, we said that we were willing to sacrifice until he actually found work back in SA.
And did you sell your house in South Africa?
We did. Yeah, we did sell. And that was the money that we took over, that
Okay.
500,000. That's what that trip cost us financially. And yeah, but you know what? I can't keep hopping on that because it did make me sick. And we just got to keep moving forward and knowing that, God has a plan. Yeah. And we're just very, very blessed to be able to be back together again as a family back here in South Africa.
Okay. You said that you worked here, Lilly. Did you, you're a teacher?
I did, yes. I was also, it was a teacher assistant for a little boy who's dyslexic and autism. I worked at a private school, but my contract was between the parents and not the actual school itself.
Okay. But at least you were busy. But it must have been just a horrific time. I can honestly just say I wish you well back in South Africa. And I really do hope that things work out. And maybe we'll see you back in Portugal again one day. And I really, really appreciate you sharing your experiences. Maybe as a last thought, if you had to advise a best friend now to say, okay, we're thinking of leaving, what would you say to them?
Thinking of leaving from Portugal to come back
here? No,
here?
leaving South Africa, given what you've been through. Or is that an unfair question?
Yeah, no, it's not. I would basically, from my experience, I would say that for them to do their homework properly and maybe go there on holiday first have a good look, see if it's for them, and then take it from there.
And maybe try and talk to other people.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We didn't. We just went in blindsided. We didn't, like I said, we didn't know anybody there. So we literally just,
Yeah, I think it's amazing we've spoken about Facebook, but if you think about, there's a group, South Africans, helping South Africans in Portugal. I think It's got about 25,000 members now. And there's a vast amount of traffic and questions and that kind of thing. So maybe people should join groups like that before they, and ask the questions, because there's always people who will answer it. So
definitely.
So I can only say thank you so much. Thanks for sharing experiences. I think, our podcast is about relocated South African, relocating for a better future. You've had a different experience, and I think it's fantastic that we are able to share those experiences with the listeners. Thank you so much, Lilly.
Pleasure, you're welcome. Thank you, Jan. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my experience with you.
Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed our show, why not subscribe to the show and join us for some more interesting discussions with people who have left South Africa for a better future abroad.